everyone. We are here on day 3 of our 5 keys to nourishing, well-nourished motherhood. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. So today we are talking about mothering specifically, and we are going to be talking about mothering not just our children, but ourselves. And we have Lindsay Ford who is going to be coming on today, and we will be interviewing her, asking a few questions. And I just got the notification that I went live, so I hope you guys did too. Hey, Danny, welcome, honey. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. So yeah, as I said, we are going to be interviewing Lindsay Ford. I love her. She has a new book out called The Positive Parenting Framework, which has been so helpful for mothers already. So she's really good at breaking down ideas about parenting and making it really practical and simple. But like I said, it's not just parenting our kids, but it's parenting ourselves. I've really even noticed within me a tendency sometimes, if I have something that needs to be healed or shifted or seen differently, that even I can have tantrums. And even I can have those days where I just feel like a child. And so we need to know how to deal with that as well. And so she is going to come on and help us with that today. But I'm just waiting for her. So we'll all be patient. She should be on here any minute. I'm kind of looking for her little bubble to pop up at the top before we get started. So let's see. If you're in the room, Lindsay, maybe just comment below so that I can see. And whoever else is in the room, maybe just say hey, say hello, tell us where you're tuning in from. If you're watching this on replay, say replay. I think I see your face in the corner, Lindsay. So let's see if I can get you on. Let's try this. Here we go. It's connecting. I think it's going to be a success. Yes. Hey, Lindsay.
Yay! Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm glad this worked. I never know. Facebook and me.
I know. I remember when they first rolled out these dual lives like over a year ago. It was so choppy and like really not good. But it seems like they brought it back and it's a lot better and easier. And I like that I can just like tap your bubble like when you show up and I can invite you on. A lot simpler.
All right, because I remember it being very finicky before they took it away, and I didn't even know it was back. So this is awesome.
Yeah. And whoever is listening, let us know if you can hear us. I forgot my headphones. I said I was going to bring them. Sometimes it's not the best with the feedback when it hears both of us. But if whoever's watching can just say that it's clear, I think we're good to go. I hear it clearly, so I'm just going to go with that for now.
I hear it okay too. So
All right.
fingers
Unless it
crossed.
doesn't, guys, let's keep going.
Okay.
Um, so I mentioned a little bit about you before you popped on, but I would love you to kind of have the floor and just share a little bit about you, about the work you do, and maybe about your new book as well.
Sure. So, my name is Lindsay, and I am a positive parenting coach, and I am certified in something called positive discipline, but it is not the be all and end all of parenting from one size fits all model. So, I really view my role to help you interpret what your child is really saying when they act out and help you figure out strategies that can not only restore that common cooperation back into your home, but also align with what you are ultimately trying to achieve as a parent. So I am a mom of two little ones, so I'm in the thick of parenting myself. So I know firsthand how trying it can be sometimes. But I also know when we have the proper tools and the understanding, it becomes a lot easier when we understand kind of how to navigate, even when we have our down moments, knowing what to do, even if it's after the fact, it's really, really reassuring and helpful. In terms of my book, I'm very excited. It just kind of got released into the world not even a month ago, and the feedback has been fantastic. Um, it's called the Positive Parenting Framework, the simple guide to let go of fear, navigate uncertainty, and parent the child in front of you. So it is. um, So it is a very conversational book. The writing style is probably one of the things that people are commenting on the most because it's a very like having positive parenting explained by your best friend, and it's very encouraging and supportive. So that's one thing I'm hearing over and over again, which was awesome because that's exactly how I wanted it to come across. Um, and it's a framework approach, which means because I don't believe in a one size fits all parenting model, and I don't think there's one right way for you to be parenting your kids. I think there's a lot of commonalities in what we do, and I help you understand what's going on with your child when they're acting out and the reasons and strategies of what to do. And more importantly, I help you understand, what is your long-term focus and what are you, ultimately trying to achieve through your parenting? And I help you understand how you can navigate those ups and downs and all that uncertainty, and yourself in terms of like what you can reflect on and all those things, and then how to set boundaries because I really believe that setting boundaries or rules or expectations is how we communicate our values to our kids. So understanding what that process looks like is really, I think, essential.
Yes. Oh, I love all of that. I love the approach that you take with this, and that it's like trying to interpret what they are saying when they're having a tantrum, because it doesn't mean that like they're a bad kid or even that they're doing something wrong. They're just often overloaded like with emotions and decisions, and really trying to understand that is so crucial. I think like conscious communication is what I'm like all about as well, right? And knowing how to like consciously communicate both with the child and then with yourself, whether it's during the tantrum or even after, is life changing. So I'm so glad you're here to talk on this. So one of the questions I wanted to bring forward here was to the audience, and maybe you guys can write it in the comments, but I would love to hear your answers to this, Lindsay. It's like, what would you find are some of like the biggest struggles that you encounter in regards to mothers when they're mothering their children? And maybe the people who are listening can write what your biggest struggles are in dealing with your children and with parenting. And let's just explore that idea for a minute.
Yeah. It's a very loaded question.
Sure.
And I would love to hear people's comments as well, whether it's in the replay or live here with us. What I have noticed as a trend, and I like to go past the superficial and dive a little bit deeper, is this they might say they want their child to listen, or they might want their child to eat better, or they can't handle the tantrums or whatever. But I feel like um, there's this challenge in the sense that they don't really understand what their child is saying when they act out. So it's that lost in communication or lost in translation thing. Like all behavior, all misbehaviors and miscommunication. So our child is telling us something, and there's just, it's being lost in translation. And same with when we're trying to parent and communicate with our child what they need. We're not necessarily, speaking their language in terms of what they can understand, depending on what their age or what they want to accept. So there's a lot that's lost in translation. And sometimes what happens is when we feel out of control, we need to control more. Um, and and oftentimes when we feel out of control, it's because we have certain expectations of how things should go or how our child should be behaving and acting. And so it's there's a disconnect between our reality and our expectations. So it's there's a lot going on there and a lot to unpack, but just some general trends that I've noticed when working with people.
Yes, no, I love that. Those are some good points because I think it all does come back to miscommunication. And even in the language that I've put on some things, it's like all conflict is a breakdown in communication. And ultimately when we're dealing with our children, like that's what's happening is you've almost like hit a wall together, and you need to learn how to move beyond it. And I find sometimes that it's difficult that if we didn't have those parents modeling that helpful positive parenting behavior, then we often just go into default from what we learned before. And so having some new tools to deal with it and be like, okay, hold on a minute, what is my child trying to say to me? Like when they say they don't want to eat this dinner, like what are they really saying? Like what is that? Then that can really help us to give them then the proper solution, and to learn how to communicate on that level. And maybe touch upon that. This is something I didn't quite ask you, but like what would you say is more like how we can communicate on a child's level? Because you're saying sometimes we don't meet them there. So what would that look like?
Yeah, so it's first and foremost, I think about, well, there's a couple of things, I guess. We want to figure out why our child is acting the way they do. So there's 6 reasons why children act out, general reasons. They're curious and exploring, they want attention, power, they're retaliating, so it's a defense mechanism. They are maybe giving up because they have maybe a perfectionism tendency where they feel like if they're not going to be perfect, they won't try. So there's that almost fear of failure and and then overwhelm. So there's all those things that come into play. So we want to, put our curiosity hat on when we can. And I mean, my book goes over exactly how to interpret all these behaviors, what to look for in your kid and what to look for in yourself, because parenting is about the relationship. So oftentimes, especially if you're dealing with a reoccurring behavior, they're getting something out of it, and looking to how you are feeling and reacting and responding is a great indicator.
Yes, wonderful. Two things. I'm going to read what Kara wrote in 1 second, but you triggered something in me actually in going through those 6 things, because the one that I notice that happens in my daughter all the time, not all the time, but it will happen, is perfectionism. And I did, and then if she's not going to be perfect at doing something, she doesn't want to do it. And it's amazing that you also coupled that in with like the fear of failure, because that's always been my route. I've always been afraid of failing. And so that's really curious, because I always thought that like I didn't demonstrate to her this perfection quality because I just kind of flow with things. But no, like if I inquire into myself, no, like the fear of failure has been something that I've really had to work on. And that would make sense in a sense why it's showing up in her, so that I can help teach her to overcome her feel of failure and then at the same time receive what I'm giving. So you gave me a light bulb. Thank you already.
Well, and it's really hard, because if you have those same patterns, um, maybe seeing that in her is going to trigger a lot more in you. Because I know, like, when I'm overwhelmed, I try to control things. When I feel out of control, I try to control things. So that's a very natural tendency. And my daughter does the same. And I'm just like, okay, you can't control everything. No, you need to relax. But like, really, it's me that needs to model that behavior first in order to keep that in.
Yes. Oh my goodness, so good. So let's see what she said here. She says, how do you suggest communicating to a 2-year-old that they've done something wrong? For example, yesterday my son bit my 2-month-old daughter's finger. When I told him that was not okay, he laughed. Okay. And then just to continue, because she just wrote again, I'm sure he's wanting a reaction and attention because it's now divided between a sister. But there are times when I have to give her attention, of course. Yes, Lindsay, what's your response to this? Thank you,
So
Kara, for your question.
I would say that's a completely normal behavior for a 2-year-old. So it's not necessarily something that you are doing wrong in terms of, sparking that behavior. So I just wanted to first say that. Um, I think it's totally okay if you're saying that, to remove him from the baby, and teaching him that it's not okay to bite. If you think it's attention seeking, and the fact that he's laughing, he's either experimenting or he is seeking attention, we're going to want to just reinforce that it's not okay and try to intercept that if he tries that again. And working to give him some one-on-one attention at other times in positive ways, and help him understand that he can get, because you're giving the attention to the baby does not necessarily take away the love you have for him. A great little story that's coming to mind, and I used to do this with my daughter, who's my oldest, and when my son was born, is you can take some candles, and if you have 4 people in your family, 4 candles, and you talk about like light one, and this is mommy's love, And then when daddy came along, mommy gave her love to daddy, and then and then when you came along, mommy gave her love to you, and it's about the love expanding. It's not taking away from any one candle. So it's my daughter still remembers those stories from when she was 2 of just, that idea that love is expansive. So it's giving attention in certain ways and helping or in positive ways outside of it, continuing to reinforce that boundary if he does continue to go. Um, and it's not necessarily that you need to be mean about it. It's a very normal response to be jealous of a baby, and that's really hard for us as moms. And then just maybe something like a story that talks about, you loving him, even though you're giving attention to the baby, because maybe in his mind it's, he felt really loved when he had all of your attention, and now he's getting less. So um, it's equating in his brain maybe to feeling less loved, and he needs to do something because it's very uncomfortable, that almost disconnected feeling of like, okay, mommy, I need to get that back from mommy. So hopefully that helps. Let me know in the comments though if you have any more questions or I need any further clarification on that.
Oh, I just love that. I was getting goosebumps as you're sharing that story of like lighting each other's candle. That's super beautiful. And I think you nailed everything on the head with that. And even saying like what popped into my mind as you were talking too is I have a neighbor who has a son and she's pregnant, and like we just gave her a couple books that she can read to her son about welcoming the baby into the home, and kind of that idea of just like learning about it, talking about it together, that sort of thing is like really, really helpful. But I think you nailed them on the head. I look forward to seeing Kara's response when she gets a chance
Mhm.
to say how that resonated or not. Beautiful. Yay. Okay, what's next? So the next thing I kind of wanted to lean into, oh, she says, thank you. I've definitely been trying to give him one-on-one time, but I love the idea of a story. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Love it. So I wanted to lean into the idea of like talking about mothering ourselves and why that is so important and how we might go about doing that. What does that mean?
All right.
Another big one.
So first about why it's important. So if we, I think of mothering as taking care of. So when we are taking care of ourselves, we are more patient with our kids. So we're less likely to slip into that punishment or yelling or doing anything that we're not going to be super thrilled about later. We are more creative in our problem solving. So when our kids are acting out or even just doing their normal kid things, we're better able to just, think on the fly. When we are taking care of ourselves, we tend to be more connected and grounded and more connected with our child. And um, that is the basis, like disconnection is the basis for a lot of misbehavior. So that connection is so important in terms of our parenting. Um, and how we do that, well, obviously it will depend on a lot of what fills you up and what you really um, believe it is or goes with taking care of yourself. But if you're finding yourself in a place where you're feeling like you haven't been mothering yourself, you haven't been taking care of yourself, um, just aim to build tiny, small habits. Just start with one small thing. So for me, even reading a couple pages of a book every day, just like that's one thing that really, really helps me. My 10 minutes of meditation in the morning is something that really like is a great way to start my day. And then, so I actually I don't think I have it on hand, but a little like daily checklist of these like little tiny things that like I know I need to do every day, which will contribute to, my happiness level and my contentment and make me, just be a better person and then better able to serve everybody else. Um, and then I think for a lot of us, we get really consumed in the day to day, the busyness, um, and and worrying about our kids in many ways, and trying to control everything around us. So the more we can let go of having to control every aspect of our days, or the more we can let go of some of our fears related to, well, related to anything, letting go of fears, but I'm thinking in particular with our parenting and our need to be super vigilant. I think those can all play a role in just bringing our stress levels down, helping us feel more grounded in our day to day, and just generally taking care of our well being so then we can take care of our family.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I feel like that was what it was with me too, is I started with one thing, and like my one thing was after I put her down when she was younger, I would stretch. Like that was my thing. It's like before I go watch TV or before I go clean the house, I'm going to stretch. And that was kind of like my connecting with me. And then slowly I started like reading before bed. And then slowly I started waking up earlier in the morning and doing the morning routine. And then slowly I started having check-in points throughout the day. So it's like as my child grew, my capacity to give love and care to myself grew. And knowing that I just need to meet myself with where I am, and that like what I can do with the energy I have right now is enough, I think is really important. But then, like you said, at least choosing one thing a day that is focused on filling your cup, no matter what that one thing is. And so if you guys have one thing that you're doing now, or there's one thing that you want to start focusing on, maybe write it in the comments as a way to kind of help hold yourself accountable. And as just like a reminder from the mindset video that I did on Monday, I created a morning PDF and an evening PDF to kind of help give you some ideas of those little things you can choose from. So that might be helpful for you to just contemplate, to think about, and really see like, what is my one thing? And then also, like the link is above us, this video here, and you'll also find in there a PDF from Lindsay, and it will help you to also kind of ask yourself the questions that we're discussing here, and just really kind of get clear more on things for yourself. Actually, this actually leads right into the next question. So I'm going to read what the comment here from Selik, and then I'll lead right into the next question because I think that was a good segue. Didn't even mean that. All right, Selik, hello. Thank you for being here. What are your recommendations to get rid of fears? I stress myself a lot, but do not know what to do. My baby is 4 months old. Okay.
Yeah. Fear is very normal, and I have a whole chapter or maybe even two dedicated to this in my book because it's such a big part of our parenting, and for a lot of us, we kind of feel like to love our child means that we need to, worry about them and fear for their safety, or it sort of comes hand in hand. We have this beautiful, precious baby that we suddenly feel so responsible for. And because of our culture, I feel like there's so much, if something goes wrong, it is your fault. So I feel like there's just so much pressure, especially on moms to, get it right. So I think a lot of self-reflection is really, really, really essential. There's a couple of things, specific things that come to mind. One thing that really, really helped me um, is this idea that worry is just misplaced imagination. So worry is, thoughts that we're feeling or thoughts that we're thinking um, that are basically um, we're imagining the worst happening, or we're imagining something terrible happening in the future. So it hasn't happened yet, and it's not guaranteed to happen. It's only focusing on the negative. So if we can start to recognize some of those fears and worries as just imagination, and we can start to imagine slightly different outcomes or scenarios of like, okay, what else might be possible? And we're not necessarily going from um, like, I am worried about, you know, um, what's something we worried about in the beginning, SIDS, as an example. It's not necessarily you know going from I'm so afraid every time I'm putting my child to bed to like, yay, I'm totally fine with this, but like, what's, how can we shift this incrementally so I feel a little bit better and a little bit more relief, and we're gradually working up that emotional scale until we feel that full release. But that probably won't, that's not going to happen in one jump. We just need to like build slowly, incrementally. And if there's one thing that keeps coming up over and over and over again, or you're sort of fixated, or you have this just this one fear, There's a really great exercise. Tim Ferriss talks about it in a TED Talk, if you've seen it,
Love
fear
it.
setting.
Yeah.
So it's basically you just kind of brain dump everything that could go wrong related to that one
I was gonna
problem.
say. Yeah, that's
And
perfect.
then what you could do in advance to alleviate that from happening, or what you could do after the fact from um, if that does happen, what could you do after the fact to sort of remedy things or fix things. So I hope that helps. But really, it's just gradually letting go. It's understanding, reflecting on what's going on, and then using your thoughts to shift yourself into a slightly more positive direction. And you're just looking for that feeling of relief. You're not necessarily looking to go to yay happy right away.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, good. Sure. Thanks. She says, awesome. That's amazing that you talked about Tim Ferriss there, because in my mind, something that has helped me in the past is that when I would put my daughter down for a nap and I'd have like however much time in the afternoon, I would take some time to journal. And for me, I would do it like a fear dump. Like, these are the things I'm fearful of. But then right beside it, be like, but this is how I can see it differently. Right? Like, I don't have to be afraid because, or if something does happen, I can do this instead. So it's kind of like a preventative, like thinking things through process. And then that almost allows us to kind of like be in the control, but let it go at the same time, because you've explored your fears and you've gotten them out and you've looked at them and you've questioned them and you've helped soften the blow by seeing it a little bit differently. So I
Yeah,
really,
and you can just face your fears head on paper or in your mind. You don't have to go there in real life, and just go down that dark, dark, deep hole in your mind to just understand it all and make sense of it. Because um, when we get into that fear part of our brain, when we can start to get past that fear and bring logic and reason and make sense of it, it helps us just release that.
yes, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Wonderful. So, two more questions. This one is about goals. You always talk about goals, even in regards to mealtime. So I would love you to talk about goals and like why are goals important in parenting?
Yeah, so goals are super important. And I say this as like not a huge goal setter, which is really strange. But this idea of, fast forwarding 30 years down the road, you have your child is all grown up, they're coming home for a family dinner. What kind of person do you want to see, um, walking through your door? What kind of person do you want to have in your family at that point? And we're talking about these like characteristics and life skills, not necessarily their employment or their income or who they're married to, but just, who they are as a person. Um, because then we can, if we have that long-term vision in our mind as we're parenting through some of the harder stuff now, we know generally what we're aiming for, and what we want to teach through our child's behavior. Because oftentimes, we go back to the miscommunication thing, but it's also like for behavior, but it's also a gap in skill set. So, your toddler might be biting your baby because they don't know how to articulate how they're feeling jealous and what to do with those emotions. So there's an emotional intelligence piece, there's a communication piece, there's a problem solving piece there. And these are all skills that we want to develop as we are working through those tough moments with our kids, and also in the positive moments. So it keeps us focused on what we want to achieve, and it helps us. I mean, there's a ton of parenting advice out there, right? There's so much. And sometimes if you're looking for a solution, it can feel really, really overwhelming. And if you have that vision of how you want to parent, or what you're trying to achieve for your parenting, it helps you sift through those strategies to understand what makes sense for you and your child and your family in those moments. So, um, and one other thing on the goals. So there's the long-term vision in terms of who we want to build, and a part of that is, when it comes to setting our rules or our boundaries, keeping that higher purpose of what we're doing and why we're doing it in mind can help us remain consistent through those moments of resistance and those really tough times. So even something as simple as, a child who does not want to brush your teeth, and if we're feeling like, oh, it's a chore, there's like screaming every night and what have you, if we have this vision of, we believe that teeth brushing is essential to their health and this is how we care for our bodies, you have that in mind, it's much easier to remain consistent through those really tough times, because we have that clear vision of what we're trying to achieve. It's not just a chore we're trying to do. We're doing this to serve our child's health and well-being.
Oh, I love that so much. And that speaks to us as individuals, as mothers, as beings as well. That if we can get clear on the end goal of how we want to be, of how we want to show up, then we can also choose the self-care practices that will bring us there. Right, that will bring us there. And I love that too with, when you have the little moments in the day, ensuring that like you kind of, well, taking care of your teeth is important for your health, so we want to do this for the long term. And as just an added thought on that, I found that demonstrating it or doing it with my daughter is what helped her. Instead of being like, do this, you have to do this, it's like, well, let's do it together. So now I brush my teeth with her every night before she goes to bed, because we started when we were younger, but hey, it works for me as well. The little things like that, like figuring how we can choose different options. Let's see what Nikki says here. I often say we are speaking to and loving a child, but we are raising men and women. Yes. So what kind of man or woman do you want to raise? Love it. Absolutely 100%. Thank you for saying that. Oh God, thank you for that vision. Teeth brushing, it can feel like a nightmare. Yeah.
I teach positive parenting for toddler class, and in every single class, there is at least one parent or one family that struggles with getting their little one to brush their teeth. It is so common because, they can just hold their mouth shut. So it's from their perspective, it's one of the few things that they can control. And just, being able to keep that higher vision in mind can really, really help you get through some of those tougher moments.
Yes. And that's the same thing with food. It's another thing that they can control. So we can't like stuff food in their mouth. They have to be willing. And it's back to like, I do the same thing with brushing my teeth with Ella, that it's like a cooperation thing. That it's not like me as your mom, I'm telling you what to do. It's like, no, this is what we all do to care for our bodies. I do the same thing with food, that it's like, if she feels that day she doesn't want to eat her greens, well, let's all pick up our green broccoli and cheers it and eat it together, like, I'm going to do it more excited than you. I try and turn things into games and then be playful and me meet her where she is and try and like do things with her until she goes, no, mommy, I could do it by myself. Perfect. That's what I wanted anyways. So it's like you slowly just meet them where they are and then move beyond. So awesome. Thank you, Nikki and Lindsay. Last thing here. Okay, so this is leaning into this now. What would you say to moms or parents who have a child who dominates mealtime or doesn't want to eat their dinner? What would you say to that problem specifically?
So generally speaking, we want dinners to be a relaxed family time. Now, again, this will go back to your goals of what you're trying to achieve. So not every family will buy into that concept, but if you have if dinner has become almost like a fight or something that you just like, you cringe at the idea of telling your child what's for dinner because they're just gonna be like, I don't like that. Or you just like your heart or your stomach's in knots as you're going to the table because you're just like, oh, it's not gonna be fun. Focus on what you can control. So you might be able to control how what you choose to focus on. So if you've been really focused on getting your child to eat and they've been digging their heels in, because that's a very common power struggle because they can control what they eat. You have the choice to let go of all of that for a bit and just be like, okay, it doesn't matter what you eat. I'm not making you a separate dinner if that is your belief. I'm not making you a separate dinner. It's there in front of you. You're welcome to eat any of it, some of it, or all of it. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy my meal and not worry about what you have to do. So just letting go of that, those expectations and that need to control, because it's not serving you well. And if there's more relaxation, then if you're not as stressed going into it, if you don't care that your child is not eating, and we can talk about that in a minute, in terms of being okay if our child feels hungry. But if the dinner time becomes more relaxed, then it's a more pleasant place for everybody to sit down together, and your child is more likely to eat. They might play with their food for the first few minutes and then slowly try things, or then, some of Brittany's, just earlier examples of, okay, well, cheers the broccoli. They're going to be in a better mood to do things like that. They're not going to see it as you trying to control them. So yeah, that just creates a little bit more of it shifts the power dynamic, because when you're in a power struggle, it takes two to power struggle. It takes two to have that battle. So if you find yourself needing to win and force your child, chances are they are also feeling that, and that's a good sign that you're in a power struggle. In terms of a child who doesn't want to eat dinner, and it's letting go of your need to get them to eat, and being okay with the idea that they might be hungry. They might experience hunger pains after, and that is a natural consequence of not eating dinner. It's also possible that they've just, throughout the course of the day, they've eaten all their other meals, so it's not necessarily usually that they're not eating at all. It just might be one particular meal has become the power struggle or the battle. So just being able to let go of that. Okay, it's okay if you're going to experience some hunger pains. We can work through that. We can look forward to breakfast the next day. If you don't do a snack before dinner, we don't do that just because of the timing of meal or dinner and bedtime. But just it's okay. It helps our child understand their body better in terms of their natural cues. And it also helps them build that resilience in terms of knowing that they can survive some discomfort, and they know, because of where we live in the world, that there's food coming,
Right.
right? They are not going, and we know they are not actually going to starve.
Right.
They'll experience some pain, and then they will get food again.
Exactly. Oh, that speaks to so many levels. Like I remember with Ella, when she's doing this transition to school, and then she'd come home from school and she'd have her snack, and then we'd eat dinner like an hour and a half later. I'd find she wasn't eating her dinner. And so part of that was having to realize, okay, too big of a snack after school. That needs to be just fruit, keep it small. And also what I started to do is like, okay, if you don't want to eat dinner, it's going to stay here until you want to eat dinner. If you don't want to eat dinner, that's okay. You'll have a big breakfast in the morning. And accepting that idea that it's okay that they're hungry was not only helpful in helping Ella to have a good relationship with food, but myself. Like when I accepted that it's okay to be hungry, it's been easy for me not to eat in the evening. But it was almost like when you start to feel the hunger pain, you go, oh my God, I got to eat, and then you kind of get to this, like, you just got to fill it. Right. But no, when I got to accept the idea that it's okay to feel hungry, then it releases that fear of being hungry and not having food.
Well,
So
if you're okay with it, then, because so oftentimes if we're hungry, we have this like little bit of hunger pain and we're grabbing for food.
yeah,
In our minds, we kind of feel like, okay, well, if we're able to do that, then our child should be able to do that. And yeah, reflecting, yeah, it's this loop of mothering yourself and mothering your child.
exactly. That's why they're together. So important. Ah, exactly. Beautiful. This is so good. So that was all my questions. Is there anything else you feel like you would want to share to the group, or does the group have any more questions that they want to ask? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll start first, and if there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer. I think just this idea that if you're struggling, you are not alone. Of parenting with our kids, with ourselves, and everything else. So there is no shame in reaching out for support from, a parenting coach like me or somebody else. Find somebody who you really resonate with, and read those books, take those courses, hire a one-on-one coach. I think the more support you can get, the better, because you're not meant to do this alone. You're not meant to feel, I don't want you to feel alone in your struggles. So reach out for help, and just know that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and there will definitely be ups and downs. And even with everything I know, I still have two small kids, and it is not harmonious and all kumbaya every single day, but it's having the tools to bounce back quicker, to work through things, to have some of those aha moments, even when things go sideways. I'm like, okay, that's how I know how to tweak it next time. And the majority of the time, it's just tweaking a few things. It's not a major overhaul in your parenting that's needed. It's just a few a few things that need to be adjusted, because and those small adjustments make a world of difference.
Yes, exactly. And I want to say to everybody here too, who's listening now or later, that like use our group as a resource too. And if you have questions, do it. If I don't know, I'll tag Lindsay, I'll tag some professional that has the answer, and we can kind of help each other to know that like we need that village. And even though we're in our own homes and now it's COVID and we seem to be more separate than ever, we can come together in a space like we are here and really help one another. So if you have those questions or you're going through something difficult, know that you can ask it in this space, and it's safe, and we support you and we love you, and we will turn you to whatever resources and professionals that can really best help you where you are. So you're totally welcome here. Everything that needs to be felt and experienced. And I see B really enjoyed Lindsay's insights and suggestions. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yes. Thank you. Well, this was wonderful, Lindsay. Maybe just let everybody know where they can find you.
Sure. My website, the book's website is theparentingframework.com, and you can have access there. Well, you can find the book there. You can hop on a 15-minute call with me, or get on my email list to get awesome resources. So that is the best place. So theparentingframework.com.
Perfect. And I definitely have links for that as well in the PDFs above, so you can get a hold of her anytime you want or need. And yeah, that's it. So for anybody watching back, if you have any more questions since we're done, we will answer later. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. We appreciate your time. We know it's precious, and we really value you. So thank you, and thank you, Lindsay. It was so wonderful.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Bye.